Another year has come and gone, and so we at Roll for Crit are here to bring you our top 10 board games of the year 2017. My name is Jonathan Estes.
And I'm Will Keeler, and I'm really curious to see what your list has, because I think this year was a little weirder than others. I feel like we've played a lot of games the others haven't, so we might actually have a bit more drift.
We generally, between the two of us, and also I think even more so in general, we tend to have weirder lists compared to the board game playing public at large. So I think
we're weird.
Be prepared for that a little bit. This is also different. In the past we've only done our top fives. We're doubling our lists this year. So I think we've gotten a chance to just play more. We've gotten better at getting more in. Another thing it's important to say before we start, of course, we haven't played every game. There's going to be games that you're going to be curious why they're not in our lists. Specifically, we basically haven't put on our lists any kind of campaign or legacy games that really rely on that component, mostly just because we don't have time to play them. So Pandemic Legacy Season 2, Gloomhaven.
Yeah, we'll probably talk more when we've made more into it. Like Gloomhaven, I actually have done a little bit into, but not enough to really give you the final. I think the fair shake.
But just to let you know, some of those more high-profile games, that's a little bit of why, and the rest of it you can freely ridicule us for whatever reasons that you think. I know my list is really weird. It's got a mix of very heavy games, very light games, very eclectic.
All
games.
mine are from Hasbro.
So, without further ado, and one thing I think, sorry, I lied. There's going to be some further ado. I want to make a rule this year, okay?
Okay.
No commenting on the other person's lists until you're done.
Oh, that's interesting.
So don't give anything away and be like, oh, I almost put that.
Of course.
Or, oh, that's coming
right.
up for me soon. No givesies.
All right, that's fair enough.
So you're going to start?
Yeah, I'll start us off.
All right.
With my number 10, which is probably higher on, I think, on some other people's lists, is Photosynthesis. This is the game where you actually are working to grow your trees better than everyone else and get points. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was very different in the way, especially with the way sun rotating, thinking about like shadow distance and stuff. I think maybe if I played it with a lot more, maybe it'd be higher. But I did have fun with it. But I do think the other games on my list I really enjoyed more. But I had to definitely give points for the innovation of it.
Hey, it's still number 10.
Yeah.
It's still the bottom of the best of list. All right, Photosynthesis for you. My number 10 is That's a Question from Czech Games. This is the party game that we've been playing where you put a question to a person at your table that has two choices. Everyone votes on what you think they're going to say. I'll also say my 10 through 6 really you could jumble in any order, to be honest. I'm not as specific with the ranking until I get to the lower ones. But this is just a really fun party game. It's light, it's simple. Maybe the reason it's lower on my list would be just because it definitely, I think, needs that higher player count. Most of our games we've unfortunately just had kind of like a 3 or 4, and it goes up to 6, which doesn't seem like that many, but I think it makes the difference. But a fun game to play if you know your friends or want to think you know them. All right, so that's my number 10.
Yeah, I can see that.
Number 9 for you.
All right.
Oh, are we going to do the thing?
Yeah, let's do the thing. Yeah, so you do your 9 now.
All right, so I'll do mine. Except you didn't, whatever. Yeah, I'll do my number 9. My number 9, sort of along the same lines, very similar, is Crossfire from Plaid Hat Games. We just talked about this recently. We played it on our stream. Social deduction game, sort of like your Resistance Mafia, but super fast-paced, only 3 minutes. There's an interesting mechanic where you kind of have some partial information about your group, some very cool details and the way the different roles interact with each other. And again, one of those you want a larger groups to play with. But I love these kinds of low stakes, high stakes, hit and roll games. And this one scratches a different kind of itch.
It definitely does stand out because of the timer. And I actually had the chance to play with the sniper role, which you haven't yet. And I'll definitely say that makes the game, it brings you a whole new level and becomes hilarious.
Which requires a higher player count.
Yes, or it's suggested, I believe.
Yeah. All right, so that's my number 9.
Yes,
so your number 9.
My number 9 is Magic Maze. I thought this game was hilarious. This was one of the nominees for the Spiel des Jahres. And playing with groups, I played with 2 different groups. And both times there's one person who controlled one direction who really should have been moving all the pieces. And you see everyone staring, just hitting the pawn that lets you, the one few ways you can signal someone to tell that person to do stuff and they don't recognize it.
Oh, yeah.
So, the game is definitely a lot of fun. Definitely the biggest issue, I think, and the reason why I think it lost the Spiel des Jahres, or one of the major points, is because the tutorial, in essence, to learn all of the components was so long. I think that they had to knock points off there.
Yeah, it is an interesting. It's slightly heavier because of that than some of the other nominees.
I think that, like, other than that, it's very streamlined. I think that was clunky-ish, and that's where it lost points. But it is a great game and definitely worth trying out if you have a group, especially if you have someone who's an alpha gamer, because they can't do anything.
Yeah, that is true. They'll try, though.
Oh, they will.
Number 8 for you.
My number 8 is, I'd be shocked if this doesn't appear on your list. Don't tell me if it does or doesn't.
I'm not gonna.
Drop Mix. This game we've talked about a lot. It is a music-based game, and it was just one of those games that was so interesting and fun to play, like playing with different cards, playing back and forth. It's so low, honestly, just because I actually think it's probably, if I were to choose an order of these to buy, I think it'd be higher up. But as a game, I think the game itself, the two-player, it's fine. But outside of the game mechanic, we've spent hours just playing cards and just making mixes and stuff. So it's still amazing, but I think the game itself is still fun, but it's definitely more for the almost everything else around it.
Got it. All right, so now my number 8. My bottom 3 are all kind of party games. My number 8 is World Championship Russian Roulette. So this is from Tuesday Night Games, who also did Two Rooms and a Boom, and it comes in a similarly sized and shaped box. And it simulates Russian roulette, only it's via card draws and dice rolls, and you are going around a table and shooting yourself in the head, potentially. So not a game to maybe play in certain crowds. They're going to be offended by something like that. But this was just a really fun, light party game that I remember. I always give points to any game that we play in a group, and the group wants to play it again immediately right after that. To me, that's a very rare thing. So I give it a lot of credit for that. It's really fun. It kind of has that hit and roll element, and it's super luck based, like enough that you would want Russian roulette to be, but with enough but in the way that a good kind of way, because there's sort of chaos going on. So even though you don't always have control, it's sort of fun because of that.
Honestly, I don't think you're probably not a good party game if people don't want to play right afterwards.
Yeah, especially for a quicker one, yeah. And that one goes up to 6. So that's World Championship Russian Roulette. Check that out. And my number 7, and this is where I will start to get into a much more serious game. Another one perhaps higher on a lot of people's lists. My number 7 is Spirit Island. This is the one from Greater Than Games, where you are all playing different mystical spirits on an island, trying to protect it from the evil invaders. And we've talked about it at length on our show, so I'll kind of be brief. But essentially, it's a fully co-op game that has such incredible depth to it, so much strategy. There's so many decisions to make. It eliminates that alpha gamer thing again, like you were saying with Magic Maze, in a totally different way.
Exact opposite way.
Right, which is fascinating.
One takes away everything from the other, gives them too much.
Yeah, so that's great. And everything. I mean, it's very well designed. From top to bottom, the art design is great. The game works great. There's also all kinds of different spirits you can experiment with. Only reason maybe it's a little lower on my list is just because it is very, very thinky, and just personally that's something that I'm more like, once in a while I want to do that, but it's not my bread and butter for the kind of games I like. But that's Spirit Island, definitely a must play.
All right, yeah, so my number 7 is Stop Thief. We just played this. It's part of the new Restoration games. And I just love playing it. It was fun to each go around trying to guess, where you hear like, all right, I've heard 2 steps and a door, and they start in this building, so I know they can be in one of these 3 spots. And it's really fun sort of puzzle solving, as well as it's fun that each person you play as has their own thing. Like, I actually played as someone who stole money from people. And like, there's one who can go through windows, one who can move faster. A lot of fun. The one thing, one of the reasons it's lower on my list is it definitely feels like it's one of those games that can sort of just come down to really, I think you call it Mario Party syndrome. It's like the last one really is the only one that matters. Like the final star, because everyone sort of caught up, and then it was just who gets the last.
Similar, we had a similar complaint with Smash Up.
Yeah. But that's more of a king-making one. When this, I felt like everyone was still in the game. Like, I remember you were behind us at first, but you did catch us. So it wasn't like you were just, well, there's nothing I can do about this.
Right.
Which, that definitely is. That's a lot worse, in my opinion. But there's still a lot of fun, beautiful components.
Uses an app. Mm-hmm. If you didn't mention that.
It does, and that's another fun thing, because you can hear the footsteps and everything. All right, so my number 6 is Viral. In this game, you are each playing as diseases, pretty much trying to see who can wreak the most havoc in the human body. I thought this was really fun. A lot of interesting strategies about how to get points and reduce them by like absorbing temporarily and covering, trying to think 2 steps ahead by seeing what your opponent has out so they can't play that organ. It really was a lot of fun to play and just try to think of all these weird ways you can try to get more out of points than your opponent and try to outplay everyone.
Viral from and that's the new Dice Tower Essential.
It is.
So essential for you as well. So far, we have yet to share anything in common.
That's
so
true.
far that we know of.
Don't look at my phone.
I won't. All right, so now my number 6 is another big, heavy one. First Martians from Portal. This is sort of based on the Robinson Crusoe engine, but takes it into Mars and adds an app to it. And Robinson Crusoe is one of my favorite games. Portal is one of my favorite companies. This honestly, I want to be a lot higher on my list. It is a really cool theme. I love the app integration, and because of that app, there's so many interesting possibilities for scenarios you can do and changes that can be made. The theme is conveyed really well, I think. It is very fiddly. So there's a lot of little cubes. There's a lot of little things you have to do. They have, since the game launched, they have come out with better releases online of rules references and the like to help people out, but definitely a game that's kind of tough to wrap your head around the first time you play it. But beyond that, I do think they mostly succeeded in what they're trying to do, and I appreciate that as the big kind of Portal release for this year. So First Martians, that's my number 6. And now, cracking into the top 5, this is where the real...
Now we're back to what we usually
That's
do.
right, the real stuff starts happening. My number 5 is one that you've already said, is Magic Maze. I put that at my number 5 spot. For all the reasons that you said, I think this definitely should have been the Spiel des Jahres winner. For me, it was my favorite of those 3. For me, this was like, gave me the same kind of feeling that a game like Space Alert gives me, which is one of my favorite games, that real-time co-op chaotic element, but the fact that wrinkle that you can't talk all the time just makes it so unique and so different feeling, and a super fun theme, being in a mall and stealing magic stuff. Tons of fun. Love Magic Maze.
Well, what's also great is that there's definitely, because you don't start talking until you trigger the alarm. So you actually will be like, okay, before we go and do this strategically, because there's places you can flip the clock and then talk for a little bit. So then you actually get some planning out time too, so which is really fun, because then you have to think, remember, we want to go here after this or something.
It encourages new forms of communication, is what it does.
Well, you actually have to hide a lot, but you have to think a bit more moving. But yeah, I can see why it's higher. It definitely was a fun game.
Number 5.
So my number 5
Yeah, here we go.
was The Thing, the board game. I thought this was an amazing adaptation of I would call a longer hit and roll game. It definitely streamlined a lot more compared to something like Battlestar, such that you don't have, you're a few hours in and some people might be like, I just can't. But there's only like 4 cards you're going to come across. So you already see most of the cards you're probably going to hit. In your, the way the thing spreads is very interesting and thematic. And I do think that it's very hard to, even if you get discovered as a thing, unless the very end when you can kill someone, you can still do stuff in the game. Like, you may be forced to take the thing on with you because you need a scientist or something. So I really do like that. It makes, I think, a lot easier for maybe someone who might be new to being the infected one.
It's not like Battlestar, where if you don't know what you're doing, you're doomed.
Yeah.
Don't you have another one now?
Oh, yes.
So that's the
right.
thing. Infection at Outpost 31. That was your number 5. So number 4.
My number 4 is Dinosaur Island. This just came in, so I haven't had to play it too much, but every time I have played it, it's been fantastic. The game, you don't know much about this, so pretty much it's if you know those theme park simulators, it's that, but with Jurassic Park theme. Also, that you don't care as much if people get eaten. It was so much fun. Each game actually, you use different dice, which is pretty much how you can get different resources. So, as well as different goals for people to get. That's how the game ends, by people claiming goals. And different, they call them plot twists, I believe is what they're called, or just twists. Might be mixing up Legendary. But they add new rules. Like, we play one where there are VIP tokens involving visiting parks, and they get you more points if you get the VIP guys. So it was, each time it plays a lot differently than the first. So your strategy that might have worked the last time, like, oh, this will work really well getting more visitors because I want to get those VIP tokens, might not work the next time. So it's much harder to be able to, I'm always going to do this before. Plus, dinosaurs.
Plus dinosaurs. Yeah. All right, so Dinosaur Island.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good one. I think that's Pandasaurus.
It is.
That? Yeah.
That's actually, you play as different companies, and Pandasaurus is one of the companies you can play as.
That's cute. All right, my number 4. Now we're really getting down to the nitty-gritties of it. My number 4 is yet another wacky party game. It's Werewords from Bezier Games, and this goes back to my World Championship Russian roulette. In that, when first time we played it like 15 times in a row with the group of like 12 people, and everybody pretty much unanimously just wanted to keep going. This is a very simple game. If you don't know the log line, it's 20 questions meets werewolf, but it's almost a cheat for me just because it really just fulfills like my favorite kinds of games. It's got the hit and roll elements, the hidden traders, and it's got words, 20 questions, guessing.
Well,
Everything
one
I
thing
love in
I
a
think
party
that should be
game.
noted as a big plus for it is that even with 12 people, the game wasn't slowed down. I think that's a very big rarity.
Yeah, great for a party game. I really just had so much fun playing it. Easy to break out for any kind of group. There is some kind of controversy, or there was legally regarding this game, but that's a whole other story that people can discount it for if they want to. But just from pure experience of just playing that game, that's my number 4. And now my number 3 is, I'm really flip-flopping back and forth between party games and heavy games. My number 3 is This War of Mine. This is the one was a Kickstarter based on the video game, which we've also played. Super intense, in-depth co-op game, really, as we've commented before, a kind of a solo game that can also accommodate more people. Just perhaps for better or worse, depending on your perspective.
And the people.
Yeah, it's based on you're in this war and you're trying to survive, and it's a very thematic game. There's, of course, strategy involved, there's combat, there's dice rolls, but at the end of the day, it's a game that's about the experience of living through this event, and sometimes you'll do something and you'll just learn something from it or not, and it may not even directly affect your gameplay. It's just part of the experience of it. And
Right.
I really appreciate that, what they're trying to do artistically. And then as a game, it also works pretty well. It's a real commentary on things that are actually happening today, which is rare in a board game for the most part. So I really love it. It also does some weird things with rules that I don't love so much, but I appreciate them, again, trying. At least the ambition is there. But it's still my number 3, This War of Mine. You're next. You're
All
number
right.
3 now.
My number 3 was Azul.
Oh.
We played this at PAX Unplugged, and I just thought it was this amazing abstract game. I really love the way of thinking of picking tiles and getting points of trying to place them in the right order, and then even thinking like, if I take this one, you're going to be forced to take the middle pool or something. It just seemed like a fun, perfect light game for that.
Cool. Azul. You got one more.
Yeah, I do.
Number 2.
Azul. My number 2 has been said.
Oh, man.
Spirit Island. I loved all the components in this. I loved it was the perfect kind of thinking. It's because it was cooperative. If it was competitive, maybe I wouldn't be, but since it all worked out, I love the theme of it. I love the fact that you can throw in like England to add new rules, like different countries who are invading. I just thought it was the idea of moving to working together, and the fact that we all had to contribute. One person can't just pull the line. It really was a lot of fun, and it's another game I want to hopefully hope it hits the table more.
Yeah, I do as well. Spirit Island. That's now. All right, now I have a number 2 and then a number 1. My number 2 is also another one that you already said. People are gonna, even I am thinking, is this too high? But I did put my Drop Mix as my number 2. Hold on, let me speak. This is not your turn. Because I do totally agree with you. As a game itself, it's effective as a party game. It's very simple at its core. It's certainly not going to rock the world with its gameplay mechanics. It's basically an area control CCG in a way with music. But when I think back about just what I purely had the most fun playing and just put a smile on my face and I wanted to keep going back to it, Drop Mix fits that perfectly. The way it uses the app, the big machine, it's a gimmick, but it's a great gimmick, and it really is effective. And I've been collecting all the cards that have come out, and I'm looking forward to doing that more in the future. And also, I love music, and that's a great component of it. So that's why Drop Mix is my number 2.
Honestly, I was thinking maybe I should put mine higher on the list. Like I said, game-wise, I think probably in the right place. But if I had to tell people which order you should buy these, I think it'd be closer to your number. I just think that, like I said, we just spent hours playing. Even if you're not playing the game, you're having fun with it.
Yeah.
And because it's music-based, you know that they can keep going with expansions as long as people make music.
Right. Yeah, so Drop Mix. Now, honestly, I think we probably have the same number 1.
But before we do,
yeah,
everyone at home, do a drum roll. All right, so what's your number 1?
Should we say it at the same time?
No, you say yours and I'll confirm if it is. If not, then you just go through.
All right, fair enough. My number 1 game from 2017 is The Seventh Continent.
Yep, that's mine too.
I knew it was. Of course it was. How could it not be on your list?
Yeah.
So The Seventh Continent, another Kickstarter game delivered to us. I mean, how do you explain it? It's a sprawling storytelling adventure game where you explore new territories by flipping cards alone or with a group, and we've compared to Myst or other point-and-click adventure games, sort of in a board game format, almost a little bit like if I had to think of another game that compares to it, Time Stories is almost in the same genre. Something like that. If you haven't played this before, you're solving puzzles and you're exploring, and the main mechanic is you have a deck, and that's your health, and it's also your deck of cards, your items. So you're balancing, you're sort of resource managing, hand managing how many cards you have in your deck, your health, how far you can travel, how much you can push yourself. The reason this is my number 1, a lot of acclaim has been given to it. It's a huge, massive game. Theme is huge for me, and that's all this game is just pure theme and exploration. I love those point and click games from video games. And at the end of the day, what it is that when I wasn't playing this game, solo, mind you, is the only way I've actually played it. The next night, that was like the first thing I wanted to do. The next day I was thinking about what are the strategies, which way can I go? Oh, what can I do? And usually if I'm not with people, I tend to, go more towards video games or a movie or something, but this one was just a draw for me, more so than most solo games have been in the past. It's super exciting and fun. You've played it solo and with other people.
Yes, I have.
And it's still your number 1.
As a solo game, it just stands apart from the rest. Because this game is long. It's not like you put it down and be in 2 hours. I played multiple hours a night for like a week playing this. And that's exactly how you describe it. Usually I'd go on to play a game or something, I'd be like, no, I want to set this up, put it down. And it just rewards you for playing and thinking. Like, it actually makes you think like you're surviving. Like, I know sometimes I'm like, I don't need this card. But once I found a snow area, I'm like, oh, I need the snowshoes. And then you think about like, oh, this needs a lot of wood to build. But if a terrain gives wood, so I'm like, oh, wait, I remember 3 spaces back was a wood space, so I should go back there.
Yeah, nothing ever feels like, oh, this is just a game mechanic. It always makes sense in the game's world and as a mechanic.
And one of the ways you add cards back to your deck is by eating food. And there are hunting spots. And then all of a sudden it becomes like, all right, I remember there's a hunting spot over there. So yeah, I can risk this thing. I might lose a lot of cards, but I'm close to a hunting spot to get more food. And all this thinking is just, and the big thing compared to other solo games, because I do like playing both Eldritch and Arkham Horror solo. Unlike those two, I can put this away. I mean, we laugh, but it's a big deal. Like, it was so nice to be able to.
It has a save system.
A way to save, you just put the cards in and hold the box. And my table is now clean for if I need to do other stuff.
Yeah, it's really elegant. They thought about all that kind of stuff ahead of time. It's designed for it.
You come across events where they'll be like, do you want to take this path, or should you eat this or leave it alone? And I came across one of those in my team play. That's how I played it first. And then again in the solo. I'm like, I know this. I'm going to do that. It wasn't that. They have copies of the cards that have different answers. So you're not always guaranteed.
Yeah.
Which to me is a big deal, because that means even if you replay this over and over, you're always going to be like, I mean, unless you remember the numbers, but I'm not that good.
My only nitpick with the game is, like you said, it can be very punishing, and you probably will die your first time through on a curse. That's what the scenarios are called. But honestly, and we were talking about this ourselves, you're bound to your own moral code. If it's more fun to you, you can just keep playing. And they actually are in the expansion coming out with an immortal mode officially, but they have like easier modes and variants, and so you can really enjoy it if that's not your thing about replaying it. It gives you that option.
I just love it. I'm excited to play it more. I do want to do one with just the two of us, because I mean, when I got this game and played, I'm like, oh, Jonathan's going to love this.
It's fantastic. I mean, I was this close to backing the new expansion just to have my own copy. But I was like, no, he has it. I don't need to spend $200 right now. But so, Seventh Continent, I think that's maybe it's at least our second unanimous number one. One year we both said Mysterium.
Yes.
Which is pretty good if we can both. First, now that we finished all of our lists, I will admit I kind of forgot about The Thing.
I was shocked it didn't make your list. Yeah.
That probably would have been, honestly, it probably would have been my 8, 9, or 10. It would have been lower, though. It would have been towards the lower end.
Crossfire was really close. I really did like that, but partly because of the time. I mean, you have the other trader game. A lot of times, hidden role games, I guess, it's not really trader in this one. Mm-hmm. And you look at each other, and sometimes, like, I understand why you really like Avalon Hill. Which is really, I would say, the bread and butter before Mafia, because that's actually a board game.
That's your staple hidden role card game.
Unlike that one, you don't feel like if you have whatever role you have, if you screw up, you're not like, well, I'm gonna be sitting here. It doesn't matter,
Right, you're gonna get a new chance in 2 minutes.
You can just keep reshuffling, and all the roles are hilarious. Trust me. We threw in the sniper, and seeing the playgroup change instantly because of that. When we threw the bomber in, people acted completely different. It really does. It was so close, but I really thought like photosynthesis pushed a bit ahead.
Yeah,
for me.
photosynthesis, very well designed, just doesn't really push my buttons.
No, that's why it's my number 10.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised by how much variety there was between our two lists.
No, this was definitely a bit more of a.
I thought we were going to have a lot of crossover.
I think on my list, I'm going through.
Here's what we shared: Spirit Island, Magic Maze, Drop Mix, and Seventh Continent. Mm-hmm. You didn't have this War of Mine on yours either.
No,
Or Werewords. Those might be the two that I would think you might have on there that you didn't.
I don't know. I guess Werewords. I don't know why I didn't put Werewords on there.
I mean, it's a simple party game.
Yeah. I think partly just the problem with the War Mine was we had a huge gap when we started playing again, and maybe that sort of it's still a great game, but I do think Seventh Continent beats it in terms of the single player for me game, because it definitely both fit. They fit that sort of single player
They're
role.
both very much that.
Yeah.
They're so high on my list, and they're both that. You just hanging out by yourself, deep, thematic. They're very similar.
But I like that, though. That's not a bad thing.
No, it's very interesting.
Like I said, for mine, Spirit Island, I know you said it wasn't, but for me, it was near perfect. I love that. Azul was just, I loved it so much when we played it.
Yeah, Azul I did really like, but again, it just was not like not something, the kind of game I'm crazy about.
And obviously, you didn't play Dinosaur Island with me.
Right.
I literally got this, I think, a week before the recording.
Hard for me to...
But I think you're going to like it. It is a lot of fun, and it's very colorful and silly. My brother's strategy actually was, he got a lot of dinosaurs early on, but because he didn't up his security, the first 2 rounds, he just ate every visitor. So they were all like, he's just like, yeah, it's cool.
So let's see, let's go over, see if there's any other big ones that we both kind of left out, or maybe that we...
Well, I know I didn't play it, even though it's right behind us on the shelf. Mm-hmm. But
Yamatai was a big one that... it's another. I did get to play it at Gen Con. It seems really great, and he's a renowned designer, Bruno Cathala. But It is, again, it's sort of more of a game that's not as much my kind of thing.
These last 2 months have been crazy. Even though we got it, I just wasn't able to fit it in.
Alien Artifacts is one that I really just want to play more of.
Yeah, and you did get.
Yeah, I have, and I did play it at Gen Con and liked it, but I just didn't feel like I got to dig deep enough into it. Legend of the Five Rings is one you didn't say.
That one's really hard because it's a card game, and I'm pretty sure I mixed
living card game.
Living card game. And I think I screwed up the first game in terms of how to play correctly. So it's one of those games. It's definitely because it's a card game and the mechanics are any Fantasy Flight card game, is like every keyword's weird. So I think I need to play it a few more times to really understand what's probably the right way to act in certain ways before I can really give that a fair shake.
Yeah, there's some other ones we didn't mention. Speaking of Fantasy Flight, we didn't play well, you did demo with the new Fallout board game.
Well, I think it only just came out, so
it's very recent.
And honestly, I didn't buy it because I think there could be a chance someone's getting it for me just because it has Fallout in the title. So I was like, I probably should avoid that.
We did just recently play Dark Souls, which also came out early in the year, but I think both of us were. We liked it, but less than enthused.
Yeah, I can see it's definitely fits a certain crowd, and I would definitely play it more. It's just, I think I have more nitpicky stuff with it.
But I do think overall it's interesting in terms of kind of trends of this year. Gloomhaven, Seventh Continent, This War of Mine, a lot of those trending towards the more heavy thematic storytelling experiences, and also things that came out of Kickstarter were huge, campaign-driven. I mean, these things have always been around, but it seems like that's really driving the industry right now.
It could be that we're actually seeing a drop in that in video games.
You mean what
like
do you mean?
heavy single player.
Video games are going more towards the online multiplayer.
Yeah.
So they were that's kind of funny. So now the social board games are moving towards single player. It is very interesting. I'm very curious to see if it will even out at some point or what that will do.
There's weird things we're going to see in the future of both board games and video games. I'm very curious to see what happens.
So for me at least, take my list with a grain of salt, because in a week I'm probably going to say, no, I should have arranged it totally differently.
No, there are definitely some games on there that I know that, like I've watched some other people's lists, and I'm like, I mean, that looks cool, but I didn't get a chance to play it or something.
But I do feel pretty good saying the Seventh Continent, I think, is a safe bet for a number one pick.
Yes.
Certainly not breaking any new ground by saying that, but I think there's a reason. It's deserving.
I am curious how we think. Come back, I mean, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, but you never know, like February, March, and we'll probably have a better handle on Gloomhaven. Because I definitely think for us, that's going to be very polarizing between us. I think we're either going to really like it, and it's going to be the rival. It would be a rival for number one, or it's going to be like, okay. So definitely really curious about that.
So those are our top 10 lists for 2017. Just want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we go and talking about, this will be our last video for 2017. I know we haven't been putting out a ton of content this last month. We did our 24-hour stream. We were at PAX, so there was a lot going on. We've been busy and prepping. And for
weddings.
Weddings. We were married and then divorced subsequently. It's a long story. We'll have a flashback episode later. But for people who are followers of our YouTube channel, which if you're not, please subscribe and like this video for more content like this one. Just know there is more coming in the future. We're kind of working on some behind-the-scenes changes that we'll be talking about more in 2018 that hopefully people will like and be excited about. But otherwise, I think that's it. It was a pretty good year, a pretty good list of games. Honestly, in our past years, I don't know if there were enough games for me to even want to make a top 10. So the fact that there were this year that it was hard enough for me to fit it into a 5, we did 10 instead, says a lot about the quality of the games coming out.
No, it's definitely, I'm pretty sure all our games definitely won awards for that we want this to hit the table again. I think that was a big deal.
Yeah.
But until then, we hope you had a great holiday season, and we hope 2018 is better. Not a high bar, we know, but we hope it's better.
Yeah.
So until then, I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and this has been Roll for Crit.